On November 4th, 1979, right in the heart of Tehran, thousands of angry protesters broke into the United States Embassy. Their target was 58 American citizens inside. The embassy security surrendered their weapons, and within a few hours, 52 American diplomats and staff were captured by the Iranian protesters. They had just one demand for the American government: send back the Shah of Iran, or else face the consequences. Amid all this chaos, 6 American diplomats managed to escape through a secret door in the embassy. They stayed on the run for several days. They kept hiding, running, changing their looks. With each passing day, the risk of them getting caught was only getting higher. Getting them out of Iran alive was nothing less than a mission impossible. But that's exactly the mission they were given. The CIA set the stage, creating a fake Hollywood movie shoot, with fake actors, a fake script, and even fake movie posters printed. But this wasn't a real movie. It was a CIA rescue mission codenamed Argo. Welcome. By November 1979, the political unrest in Iran had reached its peak. Just a few months earlier, in January 1979, Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the old ruler of Iran, fled the country under pressure from public protests. His 38-year rule was backed by the U.S., but the Iranian people had grown fed up with him. The Shah himself was living a life of luxury, while most of the control in Iran was in America's hands. Decisions were made according to America's wishes, and they had full control over the oil, while the people of Iran were becoming poorer and poorer. People's respect for the Shah of Iran had dropped to the level of an American puppet. The Shah's secret police, called Savak, was so feared that just hearing the name would send shivers down people's spines. Savak crushed any kind of opposition. Amidst this political chaos, a man returned from exile, none other than Ruhollah Khomeini. He was a religious leader who gained both the anger and support of the people. Khomeini led the Islamic Revolution, and within just a few weeks, Iran's monarchy was replaced with a system based on Islamic law. The Islamic Republic of Iran was established. With this power shift, there was a huge rise in anti-West sentiment. America was no longer seen just as an ally of the Shah, but as a corrupt Western country. On the streets of Tehran, people attacked embassies, burned American flags, and shouted slogans against the U.S. The anger against America grew even more when people found out that the Shah of Iran was being given refuge by the U.S. Their demand was that the Shah be sent back to Iran. Iranian protesters wanted to teach the U.S. a lesson by targeting the U.S. embassy. The employees planned to take hostages. On November 4th, 1979, thousands of protesters gathered outside the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, shouting slogans, broke down walls and gates, and stormed inside. When the security guards saw the massive crowd, they dropped their weapons and stepped aside. Eventually, 52 out of 58 American nationals inside were taken hostage. But the protesters didn't know that the embassy had a secret door that opened directly onto the street at the back. During the attack, 6 American diplomats managed to quietly escape through this secret door. It was done. But they had neither a plan nor any backup. They couldn't go out in public, nor could they rely on any official channel, and going back to the embassy was like inviting death. Tehran had become a prison for foreigners at that time. In the first few hours, they tried to avoid the crowds and not use their phones. These American diplomats were easy to spot because of their faces. One small mistake, and they'd all lose their lives. They asked several embassies for shelter, but everyone refused out of fear that if the Iranian revolutionaries found out, and things could have gotten really bad. Meanwhile, Canadian Ambassador Ken Taylor stepped in to help. Even though the Canadian government kept saying no, Ken Taylor took it upon himself to shelter them in his safe house. These 6 American diplomats stayed hidden in the Canadian ambassador's home for the next 3 months. Their presence was kept super secret. They didn't show up near any windows, nor did they dare to step outside. The diplomats who escaped from the embassy were Robert Anders, who was a consular officer, and Mark Lyack, vice. Consul was handling immigration for his wife, Cora. Joseph Stafford was the political officer, and his wife, Kathleen Stafford, took care of visa paperwork. Lastly, Lee Shorts was an agricultural statistician. When the U.S. found out that 6 diplomats had escaped the hostage situation, the government kept it top secret. Announcing it publicly could have put their lives in even greater danger, and the 52 Americans still held by the protesters might have been killed. If the Iranian revolutionaries had found out, it would have triggered a massive manhunt. There was even a chance the Canadian embassy could be attacked, and the U.S.'s reputation would take a huge hit. That's when America handed over the operation to CIA expert Tony Mendez. The CIA had already come up with several plans, like sneaking the diplomats out using UN trucks, disguising them as local Iranians, or getting them out through another embassy's route. But every option was super risky. The American government didn't have a plan that was 100% safe. Then Tony Mendez came up with an idea nobody had even imagined. It was, and the plan actually seemed technically possible. They proposed staging a fake sci-fi movie. The film crew would come to Iran on an official tour, supposedly scouting locations for shooting. This way, they'd have a legit reason to stay in Tehran. Most importantly, in the end, they could legally leave the country through the airport if they had passports from another country. The catch was the cover couldn't be too flashy to attract attention. It just had to be realistic enough for the Iranians. The authorities believed it, and that's how the idea for a fake Hollywood sci-fi movie production came about. Tony Mendez's plan was to create a completely false story. A film crew supposedly coming to Iran to scout locations for a big sci-fi movie set in the Middle East. He deliberately chose the science fiction genre because you can easily make up excuses for all kinds of weird stuff. This gave birth to Argo, a movie that was never actually made. To make it look real, they even set up a legitimate office in Hollywood. The office looked just like a professional studio. Furniture, film scripts, telephones, posters, and even staff were there to handle calls. Fake news about Argo was deliberately leaked in Hollywood media. Fake quotes, made-up producer interviews, and marketing materials were circulated. Tony Mendez knew that if anyone tried to find proof that this film was real, they would definitely find something. The script for Argo was specially written for this mission. The script kept mentioning Middle Eastern locations, and Tehran's landscape was perfect for that. The lie was crafted so realistically that it was hard to doubt. Each of those 6 Americans was given a specific role. One was a screenwriter, another a cinematographer, and someone else a set designer. Everyone had their own professional identity. They were all given complete documentation, fake Canadian passports, business cards, production schedules, and a glossy brochure detailing the film project. Everything looked exactly like a real Hollywood setup. It was like a film production. But just making the documents wasn't enough. The real challenge was training these people on how to play their roles, how to behave with customs officials, how to answer questions, how to walk, talk, and act confidently like professionals from the film industry. Tony Mendez gave them a crash course. They were taught every single detail. Like if someone asked you who you are, the answer shouldn't be in your passport, but in your face and tone. The first milestone of the mission had been achieved, and mentally they were ready. But these 6 Americans had now become members of the film crew. The next challenge was to actually show the whole story as if it was happening inside Tehran. After weeks of preparation, Tony Mendez got permission to go to Iran. With a fake identity as a Canadian film producer scouting locations in Iran for a sci-fi movie, his cover was backed by official documents, pre-approved with the Canadian authorities. In January 1980, Tony Mendez arrived in Tehran as a regular foreign visitor. At the time of his entry, there was no doubt because Tony had all the legal documents and a Canadian passport, and the false story he told was also backed up by news reports in the media. As soon as he reached Tehran, he first got in touch with the Canadian ambassador, Ken Taylor, and then arranged a meeting with those 6 Americans. For safety, this meeting took place inside the ambassador's residence so that no one could catch wind of it. Then Mendez gave everyone a detailed briefing on how to behave at the airport, what to say to border officials, which points to highlight, and which questions to avoid. They were repeatedly told to present themselves confidently as professional film crew members just on a short business trip when dealing with Iranian authorities. But everyone already knew what would happen if this plan failed or if even a small mistake was made. Not only would these 6 Americans get caught, but the ongoing negotiations to save those 52 hostages would be affected, and serious problems would arise for the Canadian embassy too, since Canada had issued the fake passports. Next, they spent a few days preparing, and finally the time had come to face the Iranian authorities at Tehran airport. It was just a regular morning at Tehran airport. People were coming and going through checks. Among them was a group, a film producer and his 6 crew members. They all looked confident, relaxed, and were speaking English with a slight accent. The main issue was simple. The 6 crew members had fake Canadian passports, and there were no entry stamps for Iran on those passports. Tony Mendez knew this too, that Iran was still new to the governments here. The customs and border security system was pretty messed up, and in situations like this, missing a stamp was a common thing. If the Iranian officials raised any issues about it, there was only one way to handle it: confidence. At one checkpoint, the guard stopped when he saw the art director title, and another guy stared at the visa a bit longer than usual. But luckily, their cover story was so solid that no one suspected a thing. The 6 crew members acted just like regular travelers. Plus, they had the Canadian embassy backing them up. They were on standby, ready to confirm immediately if the verification call came through. When the boarding was announced, everyone got up calmly. They crossed the gate and boarded the Swiss airplane. After takeoff, until they left Iranian airspace, the 6 diplomats and Tony Mendez kept their emotions in check. But the mission wasn't over yet. When they reached Zurich, U.S. authorities took them into custody and quietly flew them to America. No headlines were made, no official statements were released, everything was top secret. The secret was kept. This cover story wasn't just for their safety, but also necessary to protect Canada's involvement. The story remained a secret for the next 17 years, until 1997, when the CIA finally declassified the documents. Tony Mendez himself told the whole story about how a fake movie, a fake studio, and an impossible mission saved 6 lives. As for the other 52 American hostages, after being held captive for 444 days, they were finally released on January 20th, 1981, when Ronald Reagan became the U.S. president. Shah. The whole Iran thing that started all this ended when he died of cancer in the U.S. on July 27, 1980. The story of Argo, which was once just locked away in classified files, had now become a hot topic for journalists, historians, and filmmakers all over the world. They even made a movie about it, but a lot of scenes in the movie weren't true to what actually happened. To make the story more exciting, the CIA's role was heavily emphasized in the film. But in reality, the mission wouldn't have been possible without the help of the Canadian ambassador, Ken Taylor. Ken Taylor was declared a national hero in Canada, and the U.S. also awarded them the Gold Medal. The Argo mission, which the media called the Canadian Caper, was the incident after which the U.S. Embassy in Iran never reopened. After the mission, Canada also shut down its embassy and recalled its diplomats. Hope you all will like and share this video. Thanks so much for your love and comments. See you in the next awesome video.